They don't want you to see this. While our border is collapsing, Mayorkas won't even call it a crisis. Ted Cruz just exposed the lies on national TV, and what happened next will leave you furious.
Crisis at the southern border making Americans less safe, yes or no?
Senator, we have 260,000.
You refuse to answer the question. Let's move on.
And security of the
Next question,
people.
Mr. Mayorkas. Has the crisis made aliens less safe, yes or no?
Senator, we are seeking.
So you won't answer that question either. It's a yes or no. Has it made aliens less safe?
Senator, smugglers are exploiting.
Has the crisis made aliens, less safe? Are you willing to answer it?
Senator, the smuggling organizations.
Okay, you're filibustering again. Let me ask you this question. How many migrants have died under President Biden?
Senator, your phrasing of the question is actually quite misleading.
How many migrants died in 2022?
Approaching our southern border?
Yes.
Precisely why we are seeking to exclude the smuggling
do you know the answer? Do you know how many died?
I do not.
You do not. Of course you don't. I know how many died. 853.
That is
853. And by the way, here are the numbers that have died every year. You go back to 1998, you see it's consistently between 300 and 400, 300, 400, 300, 400. Suddenly, 2021, what happens? You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned because of your refusal to do your job. You don't even know how many have died. What do you say to the Texas farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on their property, who find toddlers dead on their property? What do you say to them?
I say that is why precisely we are taking it to the smuggling organizations.
But you are not. That is simply not true.
Number two, it is why we are dedicated.
Let me read from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago ran an article entitled, "It's like a graveyard. Record numbers of migrants are dying at the border." The story begins with this chilling line, quote, Eagle Pass, Texas. Local officials keep a refrigerated truck to hold the bodies of migrants who drown in the currents of the Rio Grande while trying to cross the border into the U.S. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record. Let me ask you a different question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under the Biden administration?
Senator, this is precisely why we instituted.
I don't want a lecture. It's a question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under your administration?
Senator, this is exactly why on January 5th we announced
again,
the parole
do you know
program.
how many? Do you know how many children have been sexually assaulted?
This is why we.
Okay, you're going to refuse to answer that question as well. Let's move on. It's obvious you've been instructed to stonewall, so I'm not going to let you. You don't get to stonewall and filibuster. Now, one of my Democratic colleagues before said the Democrat talking point, quote, "This problem didn't start under Biden." Look, I get if you're a partisan spinner, you got to figure out something to say about the absolute catastrophe that has played out under the Biden administration. True or false, Secretary Mayorkas, 2020 was the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. Is that true or false?
It is certainly the lowest level of immigration in many, many years. And what was it in 2020? What was it, Senator, in 2020 that impacted the entire world, including the United States?
Okay, so your testimony is the reason we had the lowest rate was COVID. It had nothing to do with building the wall, nothing to do with ending catch and release, nothing to do with Remain in Mexico. With all respect, Mr. Secretary, that answer is laughable. And in fact, if you look at illegal immigration, let's look at CBP encounters. You can see 500,000, 500,000, it drops to the lowest level, and boom, what happens? You show up. And that red line is you. That red line is Joe Biden. And you're claiming nothing happened. Oh gosh, this was here before us. No, you made the decision to allow this to happen. Let me ask you, we now have over 5.5 million people who've entered this country illegally under Joe Biden. How many murderers have you released into America?
Senator, I'm not aware of any murderer whom we've.
So you don't know.
Senator, let me say something.
Do you know?
If you take a look at.
No, you don't get to give a speech. Do you know how many murderers you've released?
I'm just trying to answer your question.
How many rapists
Senator.
have you released?
Senator, I'm trying to answer your question.
You can answer, I know or I don't know.
Senator, any individual who poses a public safety threat.
How many child molesters have you released?
And removed into the United States, from the United States.
Oh, so your testimony under oath, subject to perjury, is that you have not released any murderers, rapists, or child molesters among the 5.5 million? Is that your testimony?
Mr. Chairman, may I have the opportunity
No, you may not. You may answer my question.
You're not
Is that your testimony, yes or no?
Senator, you're not allowing me to answer your question.
I am allowing you to answer. I'm not allowing you to filibuster.
If you take a look at the pace of immigration in 2018 to 2019.
You're refusing to answer. Let's move on. Let's move on to gotaways. Gotaways are the people that get away that you know about. Now, what happened under your administration? Gotaways consistently down at this low line, boom, you get in. And they go from below 180,000 to 600,000. Now, I'll tell you this about a gotaway. You don't know among those 600,000 a year, you have no idea how many are murderers, correct?
That is precisely why the number of gotaways.
Do you know how many of those are murderers?
That is precisely why.
So you refuse to answer the question. You know how many are rapists? Do you know how many are rapists? This is a question. You're a lawyer. You know how to answer questions. Of the 600,000, do you know how many of them were rapists?
Senator, this is why
the answer is no. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many of them are terrorists? And I don't want to, Senator, here's my lecture on this. Do you know how many of the 600,000 gotaways were terrorists? Yes or no?
Senator, we are focused on the
You refuse to answer that as well. What's the result of massive gotaways? Well, one of the results is drug overdoses. And we now have, last year, over 100,000 overdoses who died, the majority from Chinese fentanyl streaming across the border. Now, you told Senator Cornyn you care, but look what has happened under your policy. When you open up the border to the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history, people die. You claim you care. Mr. Secretary, that is a lie. You know, some months ago, Karine Jean-Pierre stood up at a White House briefing and said, people are not just walking across the border. Was she telling the truth?
Senator, you are
Was she telling the truth?
so profoundly disrespecting.
Was she telling the truth?
22 years
okay,
of government service.
You get to answer questions.
Welcome back to Jace Manwa. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so we can keep exposing the truth the mainstream media refuses to talk about. What we just witnessed was Senator Ted Cruz holding Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' feet to the fire, and Mayorkas couldn't give a straight answer if his job depended on it. Cruz asked him point blank, "Is there a crisis at our southern border?" Mayorkas danced around the question like a politician reading from a script, calling it a challenge instead of admitting the obvious truth. Meanwhile, even Biden's own Border Patrol chief has testified under oath that yes, it is a crisis. That says it all. Under this administration, over 5.5 million illegal immigrants have poured into our country. And what does Mayorkas say when asked how many of them are murderers, rapists, or child molesters? Nothing. He won't answer. He won't even admit how many people have died at the border. Cruz had to tell him the number: 853 migrants dead in 1 year. That's not compassion, that's failure. Those deaths are on Biden's open border policies and on Mayorkas, who refuses to enforce the law. Cruz brought up the truth that these cartels are raking in billions, using colored wristbands to track how much money migrants owe for smuggling them across. Those wristbands are modern shackles, a sign of how the cartels have turned human beings into commodities. This isn't just about immigration, it's about national security and human trafficking. Children are being sold into sex slavery, women are being assaulted, and our government is turning a blind eye. And while all this is happening, deadly fentanyl is streaming across the border. We lost over 100,000 Americans last year to overdoses, mostly from Chinese fentanyl brought in by the cartels. Biden and Mayorkas opened the floodgates, and now American families are burying their loved ones because Washington refuses to protect our borders. The Biden administration tries to spin this by blaming COVID or claiming people aren't walking across the border. That's a lie, and Cruz showed the photos, thousands marching right in. The numbers don't lie. The surge happened the moment Biden took office and dismantled policies that worked, like the Remain in Mexico program and building the wall. This isn't a challenge. This is a national crisis that's killing Americans, empowering cartels, and endangering children. And Mayorkas refuses to even say the word crisis because he knows admitting it would mean admitting their entire border agenda has failed. This country needs strong borders, law and order, and leaders who will defend the American people, not appease globalist interests and cartels. Mayorkas should resign, and the Biden administration should be held accountable for the chaos they've unleashed. If you stand for protecting this country, then, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Jace Manwa, because the fight for America's future starts with telling the truth.